So Brian Callahan sat down with us on Friday's show and spoke about Will Levis having answers to the test. And we've spoken a lot about the open line of communication between Brian Callahan quarterbacks and Brian Callahan in game. This was the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans with us on Friday about the dynamic between himself and his quarterback that he expects to have in Tennessee.
The starting point's always going to be, this is going to be a great experience for Will because he gets a lot of the reps now that he maybe didn't get his first year. He was in competition, and rightfully so, he should have been. But now you get a bunch more time, and the focus is solely on doing everything that you can to help him succeed. And so the way you teach the detail and how you talk about progressions, just like you said, here's one. At some point, maybe you guys get a chance to see what these install sheets for the quarterbacks look like and the notes that they have on them. And it's a lot of information. And so the best way I can explain it is there's a detail to it. And as you rep these concepts, the idea is that you're repping it versus all the different coverages. And so by the time you get to the game, there is no indecision. And Will should know from the snap point that I have one, I don't have two, I got to get the three. And that's how you improve a completion percentage. That's how you improve his ability to distribute the ball. And again, every defense is different too. And so like you said, there is weeks where, we might not throw to our top receiver because he's going to be clouded or doubled. And the guys that got to go win are the tight ends and the backs. And there's a lot of schemes that you face that do things like that. And so as you teach the system, you teach them where the answers are. And our goal is always going to be for the quarterback to have all the answers and all the tools available to him. So as he improves and gets more mastery over a system, now he can make checks. He knows where the ball has to go, and he can do it very quickly. And I think that also helps the pass protection part as well. If you're playing on time and making good decisions, usually tends to help those guys up front as well.
Helping the pass protection part of it. That's what's specifically interesting because the Titans are not going to fix their offensive line troubles in one offseason. We're probably 2 off seasons away at least from the Titans having a competent offensive line. But I want to bring this up from a Kevin Clark piece, ESPN writer who wrote about Brian Callahan in The Ringer and has spoken about how Callahan is as bright of an offensive mind as there is in this league right now. And he says that they use a trick that he took from his time coaching Peyton Manning in Denver, that they have a massive play sheet in a Brian Callahan coached offense that has plan A, B, and C that becomes plan A based on what the defense does in the first quarter and in the first half. And I cannot even stress enough how big of a difference this is going to be for Titans fans going from an offense that was, we're going to do what we do, and if the time and score isn't in our favor, well, that's going to be tough to adjust. Well, now Brian Callahan says, all right, we go first drive, see the defensive tactics we're up against. All right, this is a Tampa 2 game. We're right on that. Joe, what are your 3 favorites? Bang, bang, bang. And he usually executes them pretty well, Brian Callahan says. Says it's sort of this free-flowing thing. Here's our initial plan. Here are our backup plans. And then asking Joe what he sees, and he'll say, call this. It's going to be wide open. And it usually is. I think the question is, how far is Will Levis from being able to come back to the sideline and say, I want this, it's going to be wide open, and then it will actually be wide open?
First thing first with that one, to me, Will, Kayla, listeners, is Will Levis. I'm going to say this respectfully, but it goes a long way. He's going to have to grow up. I'm talking about fast. Because that coming to the sideline, being mad and upset and throwing his helmet and needing to calm down, dead it. Because now you have a coach that has a big system. That's essentially what this article said, right, Will? He's got a huge system. And in that system is a lot of communication. In that system, you might mess up. But also in that system, if you treat it the right way, it's all the answers you need. He got to get past the emotions of it. Like Joe Cool is what they call Joe Burrow, right? Or, this guy's got ice in his veins. This guy's real stoic on the side. This guy's real even keel, right? That's what people say. That has to be a huge portion of Will Levis's year 1 and year 2 growth. Is growing up. Put your emotions behind you. Not every meal is a feast is what he's going to have to learn, because there's answers incorporated in what Brian Callahan is saying he's offering to his quarterbacks. And the quarterbacks he has had are all saying the exact same thing when it comes down to that. So that has to be number one. And the other side of it, too, is you have to be a smart player. Is what you're looking for. Can you think through all the things I'm asking you to do as a pro? That's what is going to have to, like, Will Levis's life may change. It may be he's a film rat from here on out until he fully grasps what Brian Callahan is asking for him. And if you're the franchise quarterback, that ain't a bad place because there's a king ransom at the end of it, right? This franchise deserves a quarterback that's their own, that can go on to be a premier guy. And it seems, okay, on the front end of this honeymoon era with Coach Callahan, that he's going to provide that to the guy that's capable of winning and doing that and learning and being disciplined. It's just like one of those situations where the system is hard, right? But as long as you're in the system and learn the system, it's going to work for you. That seems to me what he's promising that is going to happen with Will Levis if he abides by that. And again, my biggest takeaway before we even get more into what does having all the answers mean is he has to grow up. I ain't saying he's immature, but as a pro sometimes and as players, what do they tell you? Quick memory. Quick, you know what I'm saying? Like resets quickly. You got to get past your bad plays. That's what real true pros do. And people who are real students of the game, hey, that's over with. We're moving forward. I love his passion on the sideline. That passion needs to lead to wins and great plays on the field, too. So I would tell him that to his face, like, hey, that what you did last year, I love it. You won your teammates over. We can't do that no more.
I think if anybody is the right guy to mold Will Levis moving forward, and again, the staff is just getting started. I mean, we could see a Liam Cohen come here who worked with him in Kentucky. I'm still not going to be out on that yet. Charles London obviously relieved from his duties, so he will not be back. He has, some credit in terms of giving him some credit with Will Levis this year. But Will Levis is somebody who almost has to not completely reset that button, but he's with a new staff now. And this roster is going to have turnover. So in a way, he has to look at this a little bit as a reset, and that might be a good thing. Being that he knows he's the guy now moving forward, I like the passion Will Levis plays with. I want Will Levis to be Will Levis when it comes down to it, but he's got to be able to hone it in and know when are the right opportunities to be able to show it, right? Mm-hmm. And when you step on the field, you really can't. That's the time where you need to just reset and go on to the next play, whether that been a huge play that benefited you or an interception that didn't benefit you. You have to reset immediately. And I think that Brian Callahan, with all the quarterbacks he's worked with, is the right guy for the job to make this happen. But part of it does go on Will Levis. How much is Will Levis needing to put in the work? I think he will put in the work. I remember Colton Dowell, the first week of rookie minicamp, Colton Dowell said, I just sat in this hotel room with Will Levis, and all he did was watch film all day. Like, he just sat there at night watching film. I do believe Will Levis is that type of guy, is that type of quarterback who's going to put in the work. He's going to watch the film because he knows a lot of it is on his shoulders moving forward in terms of how this team goes. So I have a lot of hope, but the reason why it might take a little longer, not necessarily because of him, you guys, but what Will said, this offensive line is 2 years away from being complete. Even in Detroit, when Dan Campbell took over and Jared Goff finally got in a groove, they already had drafted those homegrown linemen, and they had a couple years of experience. This is like they're drafting them this year and next year, and they got to start from anew in a way because that whole line, besides Peter Skronsky, I don't know what it is.
It does feel like there's going to have to be probably one more holdover for that reason, right? Like if it's Daniel Brunskill, if it's Dylan Radins at right tackle, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to build on what he gave them at times this past season, at least down the stretch at right tackle. But I think the question for me on Will Levis is he capable of making all the throws that allow you to have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C? Because that's the thing with Joe Burrow. That's the thing with Patrick Mahomes, with the elite quarterbacks. Like, you can put those guys in different scenarios to be successful because they can make every throw. Is Will Levis accurate enough over the middle? Is he accurate enough in the intermediate passing game? I'm not speaking to any of his weaknesses right now. I'm just saying, can he make every type of throw that an elite NFL quarterback could make aside from the 50-yard bomb one-on-one coverage to DeAndre Hopkins. He's showcased abilities where he's been terrific at a lot of different kinds of throws, but is his changeup good enough for him to be the starter here long term? I don't have the answer to that yet. And that's where I think the Titans have hired Brian Callahan to take any personality and make them work. That was one of our criticisms of Mike Vrabel. You've got to have a certain kind of personality in the locker room. You've got to fit a certain DNA of a football team to work for Mike Vrabel. And for all of his shortcomings and for all of their shortcomings together on offense this year, Will Levis and Mike Vrabel, personality-wise, could not have been a better fit. Those two were attracted to one another in terms of the way they spoke to each other. I think Mike Vrabel loved the vocal leadership, loved the emotion on your sleeve style of quarterback. I don't know if that's what Brian Callahan wants. So is Brian Callahan capable of turning Will Levis into maybe a bit more of a stoic, thoughtful, cerebral quarterback, or can you be that vocal guy, emotion on your sleeve, and also be smart enough to understand how to make checks, how to make adjustments, how to make all of the throws? I don't know what the answer to that is yet, and I think Will Levis's career is going to be based on what that answer is over the next 3 years.
It is, because the gift and the curse is you got a coach allegedly that can provide all those answers for you and has done it in different places, right?
Yeah.
That's his catch-22 is it's going to be a him problem more than almost anything. If we believe that he was hired here because he can speak to the quarterbacks correctly, he listens to the quarterbacks also, he crafts the game plans for you, and you've seen this production and success in other places, there's a little bit of pressure there, but pressure is good. I always say you need a little bit of pressure with a little bit of cockiness to you, right? A little bit of anxiety to you. Both of those have to match up, and we know he's got the cockiness in a good way. I love that, and everybody says it about him. He's very capable, I think, from what we've seen and what the traits are around the folks that's been around him that closely. But yes, well, he's got to be a little bit more of a pro. You asked a question. I'm not sure if we're going to get back to it. What does the answer to the test look like?
Yeah, sure.
To me is this, and I wrote these things down because I've seen quarterbacks go through this somewhat in the building, but in meetings about the actual plays that's going to be called. Here's the other thing that's going to be for him that he's going to have to learn. Not everything that a coach suggests is good for you. You ever had a coach try to, hey, you shouldn't do it like that. Yeah, hey, no, that. But your way of actually doing it or saying, hey, I don't like that is better for the team. He has to get to a point where he has the ability to say, Coach, I don't like that play. I know it's good for it, but I don't know if I like that play, Coach, in the game. We can do it in practice. You see me do it, but I don't like that play. Fully having options. Look at the quarterbacks this past weekend. Let's go Patrick Mahomes. Let's go Jared Goff, and even Purdy. Lamar's situation a little different, I feel like, this past weekend. But when they had nothing over the middle, those dudes hit the sideline. Like, that's also on Coach Callahan, too, having those options. Where is my outlet? How many times did he go to Isaiah Pacheco yesterday, Patrick Mahomes, right? Or his tight end in the flat. Having those options right there. Simply being smart with the plays that are called his way, too. Big plays, okay, we got our times for those. Small plays, and also simply when to throw it away. Quarterbacks get super finicky about that. Sometimes living for the next play is better than you trying to squeeze between three people across the middle, or what we saw from him this past year, right? Throwing across his body in traffic. That ain't smart, Will. You know what I'm saying? Those are the things. Having the answers to the test, options of playmakers. And I wrote down T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd. Like, that also matters for him. If you're going to tell him, I'm going to give you all the answers to the test, I got to also get you personnel for that. And a couple more right here. This one was the last one. The quarterback history here, actually being the guy to reset that and what it looks like from the Titans standpoint and fan base, right? Here's a guy that you can groom and grow up to be a Titans quarterback for years to come. Is it a lot of info? Yes, it is. But hearing him say, hey, on this play, I got 1, not 2, and I also got 3. Like, being able to break the huddle up and saying to myself, my protection is here. I'm safe right here. I'm not safe right there. It's a lot to take in. But if I know I don't have 2, I don't have to look across the middle. I'm looking sideline to sideline. Or I'm going to dump off to my running back. Being able to break the huddle and saying to ourselves, we've seen Ryan Tannehill get the ball, fake the Derrick, and then drop back and throw to one option. It was telegraphed against the team that Brian Callahan is coming from. Why did they intercept that ball so much? You didn't have enough options and answers on that play.
And that's the one thing that Brian Callahan that always stands out to me is, and he talked about on our show, you listen, right? I listen to my players, especially the quarterbacks. And if they say, hey, I don't like this, fits me better, like he's adjusted. And he doesn't always go with what that is. But I think it is important for Will Levis to have the confidence in himself this next year where he can have that conversation with Callahan and the staff to be like, this better suits me. We'll see how it plays out. But I think that's, again, one of the characteristics of Callahan that you've got to be loving with working with the young Will Levis moving forward.
I ask that to say, if Will Levis doesn't make a step forward, take a step forward, and the Titans find themselves with another top 10 pick, they'll move on.
Yeah.
Maybe not next year, but like he is not immune from them moving on. Rand Carthon was in the room when he was drafted. Brian Callahan didn't sign off on it. And I don't want to sign the guy's, death certificate before he's even played year 2, right? I'm not insinuating at all that I think that's going to happen, but that is today's NFL, right? Look at Justin Fields in Chicago. It wouldn't be fair to Will Levis, but this is the NFL. Fairness is not in the vocabulary. Like he needs to take a step forward. The pressure's not on him to immediately perform, otherwise someone else is in here. But if you keep giving yourselves top 10 picks, you keep playing the quarterback lottery until you hit, especially with a new head coach.
I used to say, no, you got to get your guy and stick with it in today's game.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Right. But they are behind now, and they're having to dig out of a little bit of a hole. You don't want that hole to get too big.